You know, I mean, I mean, you brought up volume one, and during the, and I do want to go back to your record career, but before we do that, but you brought up volume one, and you know, globally we were all shut down. You know, people didn't know what to do. I mean, I started doing this because I'm a therapist, so I'm a you know, and I
Oh,
work with
really?
under 21s. I work with kids from 5 to under 21s, and so to me, I was doing this just to hear inspirational stories so I can share with the kids I'm working with. But for you, what was you know, I've heard the story about, you know, what was your inspiration to think, you know what, let me call my friends and contacts to record something that hadn't been done. So there was no blueprint.
Well, I can tell you exactly how it happened. It was April 2020, and I was sitting on my couch right over there, which you don't see in the show. That's where the camera is. And I was FaceTiming with my friend and mentor, Verdine White of Earth, Wind and Fire.
Wow.
And Verdine was sitting on his couch, and we were both wearing fancy pajamas.
Yeah, the so blue one.
And while I'm FaceTiming with my legendary friend, his legendary song, That's the Way of the World, comes on my speakers in the background, very low. And Verdine hears it and starts to sing along like, oh, it's my song. Hearts of fire, create love, desire. And I got such chills down my spine. First of all, that song gives me chills in and of itself. But now I'm sitting here with the world in flux, and I'm FaceTiming with one of my heroes, really like a founding member of the greatest R&B band of all time.
Oh, yeah.
And he's just singing along to his song. And I said, how beautiful is this moment, and how privileged am I to have relationships with so many of my musical heroes, and how privileged am I to experience moments like this? And then I said to myself, maybe there's a way for me to recreate this feeling for others and give this feeling that I have right now to other people around the world, particularly at such a crazy time.
Yeah.
And I immediately had the idea. I immediately thought of pass the mic. I thought of the phrase pass the mic, and I envisioned it. I envisioned me sitting right over there.
Wow.
With the fireplace behind me, which is right over there.
Yeah.
And I envisioned me dropping iconic records, but bringing on the artists who sing those songs to sing along. And I envisioned it right away how you see it. I envisioned the pace being rapid fire. Yeah. No one would ever sing a second verse. All the viewers would want more. No one would ever want less.
Wow.
It would be the greatest sing-along jam session ever. And it would be technologically innovative and groundbreaking. And it would present these iconic songs in a way like never before, in a more intimate way than never before, in a more personal way than ever before, and in a way that allows for modern day attention spans.
Yeah.
As we know, with modern technology and social media, people have no attention spans. Now, DJs have always been conducive to low attention spans because we've always loved playing records fast.
Yeah.
And, you know, Kid Capri was always known most for that. Rapid fire songs. Drop a record, drop a record, drop a record. Kid Capri was and is the king of that. And I didn't quite think of it as deliberately as I'm articulating it now, but what developed was a presentation of iconic records in a very modern way. And I didn't think about that all on the phone call with Nadine, but I saw what it would be on that phone call. And I hung up with him. I said, I got to call you back. I have an idea. I love you. I'll call you tomorrow. And I called an editor that I work with frequently, Ian Park. He's a brilliant editor, and he's edited many of my music videos and reels over the years. And I told him about this idea, and I said, we got to figure out a way to do this. This show was never a Zoom show. Everyone thought, oh, you just record the Zoom.
Yeah.
And how is everything in sync?
Yeah.
It was never that simple, and I've never explained it publicly, and I might never explain it publicly, but it was never that simple. It became simpler when I started to make it for television, but the first 3 episodes were not quite so simple. And I had to think of how to explain this to artists so that they could do this on their own, with me, of course, but with no one else. And I had to not only explain it to artists who might not be technologically savvy, because many of us are not, but I had to explain it to a lot of older artists who didn't grow up with laptops and iPhones. And that was the real, that was the first hurdle to cross. Once we crossed that, I now had to convince 20 or so icons to take a leap of faith on a crazy idea. There was no prototype. I had to call back Verdine. Then I had to call Philip Bailey and Ray Parker Jr., and Denise Williams and Saida Garrett and Howard Hewitt and Bobby Brown and Ricky Bell and Steve Arrington and Cool from Cool and the Gang and Khalees from Cool and the Gang, who has since passed. And that was the last thing he ever did, which is a whole other conversation. And I had to convince these people to trust me. And the only way I could explain why they trusted me is that I only called people whom I already knew, because I knew it would require trust. Yeah. So I called my most legendary friends, and somehow, some way, they obliged. Yeah,
as much as I'm a big fan of Pastor Mike 3 because of the 90s acts, the vibe of the first one is probably because some of them were playing live. It just felt soothing. It just felt like, because I don't know if you ever watched The Real World back on MTV, and the one they did in New York, no one knew what to expect. And then I think LA was the same, but later on everyone knew what to expect, so it felt more staged. But the first 2 are the ones where they didn't know what to look at. And so that's how it felt like, okay, we're just doing it and we're having fun. The idea of wearing the silk pajamas, was that something that you that you look back on and think, yeah, maybe I should have not?
First of all, I love you for asking that question. I know you've really been a fan of the show, and it's great when you have the opportunity to do an interview with someone who's a real fan of the show, not someone who, who the producer said you're interviewing DJ Cassidy today, because you always get really smart questions. I've never been asked this. So firstly, the pajamas were inspired by the FaceTime call with Verdine. Yeah, okay. He and I were wearing these kind of fancy pajamas, or, kind of fancy loungewear. And it was secondly inspired by the pandemic. Everyone was kind of locked indoors. And so I wanted this to be like a stamp in time, where you could really feel the moment. Yeah. And, girls were posting, when was the last time I wore my heels? Like no one was wearing real clothes. Yeah, yeah. I hadn't put on my boater hat in a while. So I liked the idea that I got from the FaceTime of representing the pandemic. Yeah. And then, of course, I just thought, what better way to be DJ Cassidy Fly than black silk pajamas? One of my best friends, O'Neill McKnight, who's a Renaissance man, recording artist,
and is Andre's nephew?
Producer, Andre Harrell's cousin, correct? Cousin, yeah. I had sent O'Neill the first few clips, and he called me back and he goes, "This is amazing." He goes, "You need to redo your parts though and change your clothes. You can't wear black silk pajamas." And I stood my ground. O'Neill is always the source of inspiration to me. He's been a huge source of inspiration when it comes to fashion, but I had to hold my ground. I felt like it was just, a great representation of the time. Yeah. Also, one other thing I'm not sure you noticed, I didn't wear sunglasses.
I was going to say that. Yeah, you didn't wear the glasses, and yeah, you look different.
I could tell you why. In the same spirit of the pajamas, I really wanted to relay a feeling that was personal and intimate. and wearing my signature shades didn't feel like I was home in my living room. You know, wearing my boater hat barely felt like I was home in my living room. So I said, all right, I'll wear that signature, but maybe I'll lose the glasses. I also wanted to connect with the artist as personally as possible. And I thought if I could look into their eyes, it would feel personal.
Yeah.
I don't regret the pajamas. I love it. It's really a time capsule.
Yeah.
It was still me. It was still fly.
Yeah.
I don't regret not wearing sunglasses. I wanted people to really feel my sincerity and my emotion.
Yeah.
But then on volume 3, I was like, all right, it's showtime again. I'm like, all right, this is popping off. Yeah. All right, I got to go into full DJ Cassidy mode. I got a blazer custom made for that one. The first 2, I just pulled out what was in the closet, and, you know, the rest is history. I realized it was time to bring the stage to the living room at that point.
Yeah, no, but with volume 1, I think it was perfect. I think the pajamas worked. I think everything and the setting, I mean, Ray Parlour Jr., you know, with his cigar, it just felt relaxed. And I think and I would hope it will get back to that sort of state, that sort of feel, because I know you're doing stuff with BT and it's bigger production and stuff. But that's why those first ones just felt like everyone was just in there. And it's a different time. I also have to remember people are no longer stuck at home. So the vibes changed. But that's probably why we loved those first ones, because it just felt like, it just felt real. It didn't feel as staged, even though it's pre-recorded and stuff.
There's nothing like a first.
Yeah.
There's nothing like a first. You know, I think we talked about that earlier. There's nothing like a first. You know, no matter how great Nas continues to be, you can never recapture Illmatic. That was written in his mother's apartment, I believe, where he grew up in Queensbridge. You can't recreate that energy. You can't recreate the beginning of a pandemic, you know, when neither the artist nor I had any idea what we were doing. I watched those early episodes and I almost cringe sometimes because, but you know, in a fun way. But
okay,
you know, I left so many holes between lines of records. I would never leave those holes now. Now the ad-libs are perfectly executed.
Okay.
I think of everything before, you know, it's all freestyled in the end, but I have a game plan in my mind. Those first few episodes, there was zero plan. There was zero script. There were zero redos. It was really as organic and freestyled as it could get. The only real work that went into it was the editing.
Yeah.
But the actual segments were so organic.
Wow.
And look, when I watch volume 1 now, I'm being very real. I don't think, and I don't watch it often.
Okay.
I don't think I've watched any of these episodes in their entirety in months and months and months. I've watched clips because I have a sizzle reel that shows them all, but I haven't watched full episodes in a very long time. Mm-hmm. And I have a plan about that. I'm going to tell you. Actually, I think you're going to be the first person I tell, but if I watch volume 1, I will cry, period.
Wow.
I will cry watching it. It just brings me, I don't even want to put the focus on the pandemic. We all have our own pandemic memories, some good, some bad. It's not even about the pandemic. It just brings me back to this time almost 2 years ago of just having an idea and creating something and receiving the faith and trust of people whom I revere. And when those first piano licks come in on That's the Way of the World, that first 60 seconds, I get chills. I really get chills. And I will forever be indebted to Verdine and Philip for what they did.
Yeah.
You know, they've been there for me now, you know, more than a handful of times in my career. They've played on records of mine. They've come to events of mine. You know, I'm really not worthy of the support they've given me, but, you know, I guess now it's not support, it's friendship. You know,
Yeah.
we've really become friends. But for Verdine and Philip to take a leap of faith and do my silly idea, you know, of which we had no idea what would become of it, was really an incredible thing, which, you know, I will never forget.
Yeah, because what you did is you exposed them to a generation who had lost touch with the 70s and 80s, and probably didn't, you know, weren't exposed much, because with BET, we're not getting the videos and we're not seeing them. And so that's what you were able to do. A whole generation, wow, I didn't realize about this song. Oh, I didn't realize this person did that. And that's the one of the legacies I can see from what that is, from Pastor Mike, because it did get generations of people who didn't know fall in love with a genre of music that only a select people were still able to access and enjoy.
And at the same time, I'm going to flip this on you. I think it exposed older people who were fans, say, of Volume 1 and the Soul Train edition to hip hop. You know, the Pass the Mic show that aired after the BET Awards in June was a show celebrating the greatest hip hop and R&B and reggae records, of which there were several, of the 2000s.
Yeah.
That show spanned from 2000 to 2009. Those are very recent records, and those artists are still very young. And I think in the same way that I exposed teenagers and 20-year-olds to the great R&B songs of the 70s and 80s, I think we probably also exposed people who grew up with those records to hip hop and R&B records of the 2000s, and made them realize, oh, wait, I know the words to all these songs as well.
Yeah.
What it really has done is reminded us, and when I say us, I mean music lovers of all ages, it's reminded us of what our favorite songs are.
Yeah.
Because all of these songs I like to think of as the greatest songs of all time.
Yeah.
I make that statement often. I go, these are the greatest songs of all time.
Yeah.
They are. They are the greatest songs of all time. And they've touched my life. That's why I include the songs I include. I choose the songs based on the songs that hold the most special place in my heart.
Yeah.
Because the songs, to me, they have to be the interaction between me and the record and me and the artist has to be authentic. I never want to have to study the lyrics or figure out where to ad lib an MC. I have to been doing it for years. It has to be in me already.
Yeah.
No rehearsal needed. So these are the greatest songs of all time. I think it's reminded us. What the greatest songs of all time are. It's reminded us what our favorite songs of all time are. And it's reminded younger people, oh, wait, I know the words to every one of these songs. And it's reminded older viewers, wait, I know the words to this Ja Rule and Nelly song also.
Yeah.
And I think it's bridged a lot of gaps. It's built a lot of bridges between people, ages, races, localities. I think it's bridged gaps between genres and eras.
Yeah.
I've always wanted to be the DJ that was unbound by genre and unbound by era.
Yeah.
And I'm really proud that I get to exhibit that on this show, because that's really the foundation of the show. There are no boundaries, and we all sing together.
Yeah.
And we all dance together, and we all party together, and we all celebrate together. If you take home anything from this show, that's what I would love people to take home.
Thanks for watching. Please remember to subscribe to the channel, but most importantly, to press the notification bell so that you can be notified when we do have a new interview. Loads to come, but thanks a lot for watching.